The Andy Griffith Show built a town called Mayberry. Most of the men and women who built it are gone now. 7 principal cast members have died across 5 decades in cemeteries from California to Alabama to North Carolina. One survivor remains, 72 years old and still working. Number 1 is Andy Griffith. He was born June 1, 1926 in Mount Airy, North Carolina, and he died on Roanoke Island on July 3, 2012, at the age of 86. Between those dates, he became Sheriff Andy Taylor, the calmest man in American television. Sheriff Taylor was a widowed father raising his son in a one-deputy town. Griffith played him with a warmth that had no sentimentality in it. He corrected his cousin Barney without humiliating him. Arguments ended without anyone winning them. Whole generations grew up assuming that was what fathers were supposed to sound like. Before Mayberry, Griffith was a music teacher from a working-class family who graduated from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 1949. He earned a Tony nomination for the 1955 Broadway play No Time for Sergeants. Elia Kazan cast him in A Face in the Crowd in 1957 as a country singer turned political demagogue, a performance still studied in film schools. He owned a majority stake in his own production company, which made him wealthy and gave him final creative control. The Emmys never nominated him for the role of Sheriff Taylor across 8 seasons. President George W. Bush gave him the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2005. His first marriage to Barbara Bray Edwards produced 2 adopted children. Sam, their son, died of alcoholism in 1996 at age 38. Griffith did not attend the funeral because he could not bear the cameras. A third marriage to actress Cindy Knight in 1983 lasted 29 years and was the central relationship of his life. Death came as a heart attack at 7 in the morning. Cindy was at his side. The family had arranged everything in advance, and his body was lowered into a grave on his own private property by 11:30 that same morning. He was buried within 5 hours of his last breath, on the family's 70-acre estate on Roanoke Island, behind a sign on Leland Lane that fans are asked never to cross. Andy Taylor was the sheriff America wished it could call when something went wrong. The man behind him, Andy Griffith, arranged years in advance to vanish from public view the moment he was gone. Number 2 on this list is Don Knotts. He was born July 21, 1924, in Morgantown, West Virginia, and he died February 24, 2006, in Los Angeles at the age of 81. Between those dates, he played Deputy Barney Fife and won 5 Emmy Awards for it. Barney Fife was self-important, romantic, and almost always wrong. He carried 1 bullet in his shirt pocket because he could not be trusted with a loaded gun. Knotts did not play him as stupid. He played him as a man who desperately wanted to be competent and could not see how far short he fell. Every twitch, every quivering syllable, every accidental gun discharge was a man losing a fight with himself. His childhood was harder than any of his comedy ever suggested. Don's father had schizophrenia and battled alcoholism. He died of pneumonia when Don was 13. The widowed mother raised 4 boys in a Morgantown boarding house. Knotts joined the United States Army in 1943 and spent the war touring the Pacific as a ventriloquist and comedian for the Special Services Battalion. 5 Emmy Awards came his way for Best Supporting Actor in a television comedy. The financial reality was harder. While Griffith owned a piece of the production, Knotts was paid roughly $1,250 per episode with no share of syndication. His manager Sherwin Bash later admitted, "I worked out this terrible deal for him where he ended up making no money in 5 years." After season 5, Knotts asked Griffith for an ownership stake. The request was effectively rejected. Griffith had also said the show would end at season 5. Knotts believed him, signed a film deal with Universal, and left. He was married 3 times. His first marriage was to college sweetheart Catherine Metz in 1947, in her father's Baptist church in Wheeling, West Virginia. They had 2 children, Karen and Thomas. Karen grew up to be an actress and stand-up comedian who later wrote a memoir called Tied Up in Knots. After the 1964 divorce, Knotts raised both children as a single father. Marriage number 2, to Laura Lee Tuckna, ended in 1983. The third marriage, to actress Frances Yarborough, lasted from 2002 until his death. Death came of lung cancer complications on February 24, 2006, in a Los Angeles hospital. His daughter Karen later said that even on his deathbed he was making the family laugh so hard she had to leave the room. Andy Griffith visited him in the hospital before the end. Their friendship had survived the contract dispute and lasted 50 years. He rests today at Pierce Brothers Westwood Village Memorial Park in Los Angeles, in the same cemetery as Marilyn Monroe and Truman Capote. Barney Fife was the deputy who carried one bullet in his pocket. Don Knotts was the man who won 5 Emmys for a show that gave him no piece of its fortune. Frances Bavier comes in at number 3, Aunt B. Taylor. She was born December 14, 1902, in New York City, and she died December 6, 1989, in Siler City, North Carolina, at age 86. She had played Andy Taylor's housekeeping aunt for 8 seasons. Aunt B was the unmarried aunt who became a mother nobody asked her to be. Bavier played her with a soft, fluttering dignity. The character earned her a Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy in 1967, the only one ever given to a regular cast member of the show besides Don Knotts. She did not see herself as Aunt B. Bavier had built a serious New York theater career beginning in 1925 when she debuted on Broadway. Columbia University and the American Academy of Dramatic Arts had trained her. During World War II, she toured the Pacific with the USO. The role she considered her true one was dramatic, not comic. On the Mayberry set, she was easily slighted, and Andy Griffith later said the crew walked on eggshells around her. She was married only once, to a man named Russell Carpenter, from 1928 to 1933. After the 1933 divorce, Bavier never remarried, and she had no children. When Mayberry RFD ended in 1970, she retired and bought a 20-room house in Siler City, North Carolina, in 1972, sight unseen. Her dressmaker bought it for her. What happened next is one of the saddest deaths in classic television. She moved into the Siler City house alone, with her cats, and became increasingly reclusive. On November 22, 1989, she was admitted to Chatham Hospital with heart problems. From the cardiac care unit, she told the hospital administrator she would see no visitors except Andy Griffith, Don Knotts, and Ron Howard. None of them came. Hundreds of cards arrived from fans she had never met. She was discharged on December 4th and died at home 2 days later, at 7 in the evening, of congestive heart failure, 8 days short of her 87th birthday. When the house was opened, she was found to have been living among 14 cats. The furniture was worn and the carpets threadbare. 4 months before she died, she had picked up the phone and called Andy Griffith to apologize for being difficult during the show's run. Her estate, valued at $700,000, went mostly to charity, including an annuity that still pays a yearly Christmas bonus to every Siler City police officer. She rests today at Oakwood Cemetery in Siler City, Chatham County, North Carolina. Her headstone is inscribed, Aunt B. Aunt B was the woman who kept the house for everyone else. Frances Bavier was the woman who kept it for 14 cats, and who left a Christmas bonus to a small-town police force she had never sworn into anything. Bavier picked up the phone 4 months before she died, just to apologize. If you had 4 months left and only one phone call, who would yours be to? Leave it in the comments. The number 4 spot belongs to Betty Lynn, Thelma Lou. She was born August 29, 1926 in Kansas City, Missouri, and she died October 16, 2021 in Mount Airy, North Carolina, at the age of 95. Thelma Lou was the sweet, patient girlfriend of Deputy Barney Fife. Lynn played her with a quiet warmth, and she was the one person on the show who could make Barney slow down. Before Hollywood, Lynn was a child performer, enrolled in the Kansas City Conservatory of Music at age 5. By 14, she was singing in supper clubs. At 18, she joined the USO and toured the China-Burma-India theater of World War II, visiting wounded servicemen across half a year of combat zones. 20th Century Fox signed her to a multi-year contract afterward, and she appeared in Cheaper by the Dozen and Father Was a Fullback. Lynn was a lifelong devout Roman Catholic. She never married, had no children, and lived most of her adult life alone. In 2007, after multiple break-ins at her home in Los Angeles, she made a decision that almost nobody in Hollywood history has made. She left California. At the age of 80, she moved to Mount Airy, North Carolina, Andy Griffith's actual hometown, the real-world model for the fictional Mayberry, and spent the next 14 years there. Once a month, she sat in the Andy Griffith Museum and signed autographs for fans who had grown up watching her on television. Death came October 16, 2021, after a brief illness. She was 95. Ron Howard wrote afterward that she had brightened every scene she was in and every shooting day she was on set, and that she was truly 95 years young. A private burial took place in California at Holy Cross Cemetery in Culver City, Los Angeles County, the state she had left in fear and never returned to in life. Thelma Lou was Mayberry's girl next door. Betty Lynn was the woman who moved to Mayberry once Mayberry was finally real. 4 more cast members are coming, and one of them played his last scenes propped up in a brace. Subscribe so you do not miss what happened next. Number 5 is Howard McNear, Floyd Lawson, the barber. He was born January 27, 1905 in Los Angeles, and he died January 3, 1969 in San Fernando, California at age 63. He played Mayberry's chatty barber for 7 seasons, and he never really recovered from what happened to him in the middle of the run. Floyd the barber was the soft, slow-talking center of Mayberry's male social life, the man whose chair was where gossip happened, and where Andy and Barney went to think out loud. McNear played him so naturally that Don Knotts once said the role was barely a stretch. Before Mayberry, McNear played Doc Charles Adams in the radio version of Gunsmoke from 1952 to 1961. He served in the United States Army Air Corps during World War II. He had appeared in dozens of films, including Anatomy of a Murder and Blue Hawaii. In early 1963, midway through the 3rd season of the show, McNear suffered a massive stroke. The left side of his body became paralyzed. He left the show for nearly a year and a half to recover. At 58 years old, his career was effectively over. Andy Griffith refused to let it stay over. He personally called Howard and asked him to come back. The production crew built a chair and brace so McNear could play Floyd while seated. From 1964 onward, most of Floyd's scenes were filmed with him on a bench outside the barber shop, his left hand resting motionless on a newspaper in his lap. The viewer at home rarely noticed. Howard noticed. Jack Dodson, who played Howard Sprague, later described one of McNear's last scenes. It was a very simple scene of reconciliation. He could not remember it. He went over it and over it, frustrated with himself. Seeing his despair and anxiety was the most painful experience that I have ever had. McNear left the show in 1967. He died less than 2 years later of pneumonia complicated by a second stroke. Parley Bear delivered the eulogy. According to producer Richard Linka, the service was, against all expectation, a comedy. It was the only funeral I have ever been to where the laughs exceeded the tears. They told Howard McNear stories from the pulpit. He rests today at Los Angeles National Cemetery, cremated with full military honors as a World War II veteran, in Columbarium Section 323, Row A, Column 12. Floyd Lawson was the slowest-moving man in Mayberry. Howard McNear was the actor whose colleagues built him a brace to stand because they could not bear to let him go. Jim Nabors holds the 6th slot, Gomer Pyle. He was born June 12, 1930, in Sylacauga, Alabama, and he died November 30, 2017, in Honolulu, Hawaii, at the age of 87. He played the gas station attendant who became famous for the word golly lee. Gomer Pyle was the most innocent face on Mayberry's Main Street, played by a man who could not imagine that anyone meant anyone else any harm. After 2 seasons, CBS gave Nabors his own series in 1964, Gomer Pyle, USMC, which ran in the top 10 for 5 years. His salary on the original show was modest. Nabors made one of the smartest moves of his career when CBS gave him the spinoff. He negotiated a 20% cut of the syndication revenue from Gomer Pyle, USMC. The deal made him financially independent for life. He later owned a 500-acre macadamia ranch on Maui with more than 20,000 trees. Before Hollywood, he was a sheriff's son with severe childhood asthma, a graduate of the University of Alabama, a typist at the United Nations, and a film cutter for NBC. Bill Dana discovered him singing in a Santa Monica cabaret. Andy Griffith saw him perform there and personally invited him to play a one-shot role in 1962. He converted to Catholicism in the mid-1960s. By 1976, he had moved permanently to Hawaii. His longtime companion of 38 years, Stan Cadwallader, met him in 1975 when Cadwallader was a Honolulu firefighter and was at his side when he died. Death came November 30, 2017, at his home in Honolulu. His health had been declining for a year, with his immune system suppressed since a 1994 liver transplant required after hepatitis B. He had spent his last months helping plan his own memorial service. About 200 friends gathered at the Pacific Club, and a recording of him singing The Impossible Dream closed the service. He has no grave. The ashes were scattered into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Honolulu. Gomer Pyle was the slowest man at the gas station. Jim Nabors was the smartest negotiator on the call sheet, and the only cast member whose final coordinates are the ocean off Honolulu. Number 7 brings us to George Lindsay, Goober Pyle. He was born December 17, 1928, in Fairfield, Alabama, and he died May 6, 2012, in Nashville, Tennessee, at the age of 83. Goober was the kind but dim mechanic in Mayberry's filling station, the man in the propeller beanie who shouted, "Yo!" and did a famously bad Cary Grant impression. Lindsay played him for 4 years on the original show, 3 on Mayberry RFD, and 20 on Hee Haw. He wore the beanie for 28 years total. Lindsay was nothing like the part. He had been a college quarterback, a biology graduate from the University of North Alabama, a former Air Force serviceman, and a former history teacher. 2 Broadway plays came before Hollywood. He had originally auditioned for the Gomer Pyle role and lost it to Jim Nabors. When he saw that first episode air on television, he kicked his own TV screen. A bigger lost role stayed hidden for decades. Leonard Nimoy revealed in 2006 that Gene Roddenberry's first choice to play Mr. Spock had been George Lindsay. Lindsay never got the part. He spent the rest of his career as Goober. He married Joyanne Herbert in 1955. They had 2 children, daughter Camden and son George Jr., before divorcing in 1991. His longtime partner until his death was Nashville businesswoman Ann Wilson. Death came of heart failure on May 6, 2012, in Nashville, after a brief illness. Andy Griffith, who would himself die 2 months later, said, "George often told me his fondest memories of his life in show business were the years he spent working on The Andy Griffith Show. They were for me too." Lindsay rests at Oak Hill Cemetery in Jasper, Walker County, Alabama, in the Smith family plot beside his mother. Across 17 years of an annual celebrity golf tournament in Montgomery, he had quietly raised more than $1 million for Alabama Special Olympics. Goober Pyle was the dim mechanic in a propeller beanie. George Lindsay was the actor who lost Mr. Spock and raised $1 million for Special Olympics anyway. The last entry on this list is number 8, Ron Howard. He was born March 1, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma. And as of this month, May 2026, he is 72 years old and still working. Opie Taylor was the show's child, the unguarded center of every scene between father and son. Andy Griffith taught the boy how to act on camera by treating him like a co-worker, and many of the show's most loved moments are simply a father and son figuring something out together. The performance is unmannered because Howard was actually 6 years old, and his father was actually teaching him. His parents, Rance and Jean Howard, were both working actors. He made his first screen appearance at 18 months old in a film called Frontier Woman. By the time he was 5, he was a professional television actor. After The Andy Griffith Show, he played Richie Cunningham on Happy Days for 6 years. Then, in 1980, he walked off the soundstage. He directed Grand Theft Auto for Roger Corman in 1977. From there came Splash, Cocoon, Willow, Parenthood, Backdraft, Apollo 13, Ransom, A Beautiful Mind, Cinderella Man, The Da Vinci Code, Frost/Nixon, Rush, Solo, 13 Lives, and Eden. He won the Academy Award for Best Director and Best Picture for A Beautiful Mind in 2002. The National Medal of Arts followed in 2003. 2 stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame bear his name. He married writer Cheryl Alley on June 7, 1975, a marriage that, as of 2026, has lasted 51 years in an industry where lasting marriages are almost unheard of. They have 4 children: Bryce Dallas Howard, twins Jocelyn and Paige, and son Reed. The family moved to a 33-acre estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, in the 1980s, after Bryce came home from preschool carrying a script someone wanted to send to her father. Howard decided then that his children would not be raised inside Hollywood, and he kept that promise. In February 2025, Howard publicly revealed that he and Don Knotts had been distant cousins, a fact neither of them ever knew. He continues to direct films and run Imagine Entertainment. The 6-year-old boy in the opening credits, walking with his father toward the fishing hole, is the only person from that cast still alive. Opie Taylor was the boy learning how to be good. Ron Howard is the boy who became the man who directed Apollo 13. Roanoke Island, Westwood, Siler City, a Los Angeles columbarium, Culver City, Jasper, Alabama, Ashes in the Pacific, and Greenwich, Connecticut, where the last Mayberry survivor is 72 and still working.